The city wept. A cold, relentless November rain slicked the asphalt of the Narrows, turning the neon glow of dive bars and pawn shops into blurry, bleeding watercolors. Inside the obsidian shell of his armored sedan, Rocco the Shadow Santoro felt nothing of the chill. His world was one of controlled temperature, of silent power that bent the city to his will. He was the dawn of the Santoro family, a king whose name was a prayer on the lips of his allies and a curse on those of his enemies. His gaze, famously as cold and hard as the barrel of a gun, swept over the grim tableau of his territory. Then he saw them. A splash of tragic color against the gray pavement. A woman, her dark hair plastered to her skull, curled like a wilting flower around two small children. Their belongings, a pathetic pile of soaked cardboard boxes and a single sad-eyed teddy bear, were dissolving in the downpour. His driver, a hulking brute named Johnny, grunted. "Falcone trash. Heard her husband caught a stray in the warehouse skirmish last month. Landlord probably kicked her out." Rocco's eyes narrowed. He knew the face. Liliana, the widow of a foot soldier his men had put in the ground. By the laws of their world, she was less than nothing to him, an inconvenient remnant of a necessary conflict. His men in the car, his cousin Vincenzo beside him, expected the order to drive on. They expected the cold indifference that had earned him his moniker. But Rocco didn't give the order. He saw the way the woman Liliana shielded the smaller child with her own body, her spine ramrod straight even as she shivered. He saw the defiance in the set of her jaw, a flicker of fire in the urban tundra. It was a look he understood. It was the look of a cornered animal ready to fight to the death. Something ancient and possessive stirred in the frozen depths of his soul. Vincenzo shifted, his cologne thick and cloying. "Rocco? We have the meeting at the docks." Rocco ignored him. He tapped the glass partition. "Stop the car." Johnny's eyes met his in the rearview mirror, wide with disbelief. The car hissed to a halt beside the curb. The rain hammered against the roof, a frantic drumbeat heralding an unprecedented act. Rocco Santoro, the Shadow King who moved through life unseen and untouched, opened his own door and stepped out into the storm. The icy rain was a shock, plastering the fine wool of his Brioni suit to his skin. He didn't flinch. His focus was entirely on the woman. As he approached, a predator cloaked in shadows and wealth, Liliana looked up. Fear flashed in her eyes, wide and green like fractured sea glass, but it was quickly consumed by that same stubborn fire. She pushed her children further behind her, a silent, desperate challenge. He stopped before her, a titan of dark power looking down upon a Madonna of the gutter. His voice, when it came, was a low rumble, the sound of gravel and aged whiskey. "Basta. Enough." He didn't offer pity. He issued a command. "You and the children will come with me." It was not a question. It was a claiming. Liliana stared, speechless, as he gestured to his men. Leo, his loyal consigliere, was already out of the follow car, an umbrella held aloft, his expression one of profound confusion. "Boss." Rocco's gaze never left Liliana's. "Leo, take them to the villa on the hill. See that they are warm and fed. Give them the master suite." Vincenzo finally scrambled out of the car, his face a mask of incredulous fury. "Rocco, what is this?" "She is a Falcone." Rocco turned his head slowly, a gesture so cold it could freeze the rain in midair. "She is mine now." The words hung in the air, an oath and a verdict. He had seen a flicker of light on a cold, wet pavement, and in a move that stunned everyone, the Shadow King had decided to possess it. The villa was a gilded cage, a masterpiece of Italian marble in suffocating silence perched high above the city's grime. Liliana felt as though she had been spirited away to a fairy tale castle. But she knew the master was no prince. He was an ogre. Her children, Matteo and Sofia, were initially terrified, then seduced by the warmth, the soft beds, and the endless supply of hot chocolate provided by a stoic but not unkind housekeeper. Liliana, however, could not be bought. She wore the silk robes they gave her like armor and ate the gourmet food as if it were ash in her mouth. She was a captive, a prize, a curiosity, and she would not let her captor forget it. Rocco came to see her that first night. He stood in the doorway of her opulent suite, a monolith of power in a fresh, perfectly tailored suit. He had dismissed his guards, a rare show of something. Trust? Arrogance? He held a single blood-red rose in his hand. Your new life is an improvement, yes? He asked, his voice smooth but laced with an undeniable edge of ownership. Liliana stood from the window seat where she'd been watching the distant city lights. A gilded cage is still a cage, Signor Santoro, he smiled, a slow, dangerous curving of his lips that did not reach his eyes. A cage is the safest place for a little sparrow passerato when there are hawks in the sky. He stepped closer, the scent of rain and dominance clinging to him. He offered her the rose. She refused to take it. My husband died because of your hawks. His smile vanished. Your husband chose his side. You and your children are innocents in a war you did not ask for. I am merely removing you from the battlefield. He placed the rose on a nearby table, its crimson petals a stark slash of color against the white marble. I own you now, Liliana. Your safety, your life, it all belongs to me. Fight me, and you will only bruise yourself against the bars. Accept it, and you will want for nothing. Her chin lifted. I will never accept being property. His eyes darkened, a storm gathering in their depths. You already are. The days bled into a tense rhythm. Rocco was a constant, looming presence. He would appear without warning, observing her with an intensity that felt like a physical touch. He watched her read to Matteo. He listened as she sang a lullaby to Sophia. He saw a softness, a purity that was utterly alien in his brutal world. Each glimpse of it was like a drop of water on a parched soul, and it unnerved him. Their arguments became a form of intimacy, a verbal sparring that crackled with unspoken energy. Why do you do this? She demanded one afternoon in the vast sun-drenched library. Why bring me here? To mock me? A trophy from your latest victory. He was leaning against a bookshelf, the very picture of casual menace. I saw something I wanted. I took it. It is the way of my world. I am not a thing. I am a woman, a mother. You are fire in a world of ice, he countered, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. I wanted to see if you would melt or if you would burn me. He pushed off the shelf and walked toward her, circling her like a shark. Every man in my organization thinks I am weak for bringing you here. My cousin Vincenzo, he looks at me with contempt. They think my heart has softened. He stopped in front of her, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Let me be clear. My heart is a stone. But you are the only thing that has ever made it feel like it might beat again. Leo, his wise and weary consigliere, tried to warn him. Rocco, this is dangerous. The other families see this. They see a distraction. Vincenzo spreads whispers in the shadows. He calls her your weakness. Rocco had simply stared into the flames of his fireplace. Perhaps she is, he had said, more to himself than to Leo. Or perhaps she is the only strength I have left. The breaking point came on a moonless night. A scream tore through the villa's silence. Liliana was already out of bed and rushing to her daughter's room before the sound faded. She found Sophia sitting bolt upright, her small face pale and slicked with tears, her body trembling. The loud noises, Mama. The loud noises are back. The gunshots. The memory of her father's death. Liliana gathered her daughter into her arms, rocking her, whispering soothing words in Italian. But the terror had its hooks in deep. Suddenly a shadow filled the doorway. It was Rocco. He was dressed in a simple black t-shirt and pants, stripped of his usual armor of expensive tailoring. For a moment he just watched, his expression unreadable. Liliana tensed, expecting a cold dismissal, an order to quiet the child. Instead, he walked slowly into the room and knelt beside the bed. His presence was overwhelming, but there was no menace in it. He looked at the crying child and something in his hard face softened, a subtle shift of tectonic plates. What did you see, Piccolina? He asked, his voice a gentle rumble. Sophia hiccuped, peering at the terrifying man through her tears. The fire sticks. They were so loud. Rocco's large, scarred hand, a hand that had signed death warrants and broken men, reached out and gently brushed a tear from Sophia's cheek. His touch was surprisingly tender. Sometimes, he said softly, the world is a very loud place, but the noises cannot get you here. I built these walls to be stronger than any storm. Here you are safe. I give you my word. Te lo prometto. He spoke of monsters in the dark and the magic that keeps them at bay, simple, foolish things a don of the Mafia should never say. Yet he said them with a profound gravity. Liliana watched, her heart hammering against her ribs. She saw the man beneath the monster, the boy who had once been frightened of the dark, the protector buried under layers of brutality. Sophia's sobs quieted, her breathing evening out as she leaned against her mother, her gaze fixed on Rocco. He had calmed a storm Liliana could not. When Sophia was finally asleep, Liliana followed him out into the hallway. The air between them was different now, charged with a new fragile intimacy. "Thank you," she whispered. He turned to face her, his eyes searching hers in the dim light. Her fear. I know it well. For the first time she wasn't looking at her captor. She was looking at a man. And in that moment of shared vulnerability, the carefully constructed walls between them began to crumble into dust. The garden was Rocco's sanctuary, a meticulously kept explosion of blood-red roses and shadowed cypress trees. It was here, a week after he had calmed Sophia's nightmare, that the simmering tension between them finally ignited. They were arguing again, the familiar cadence of her defiance against his control. But this time the words were sharper, laced with a desperation neither could hide any longer. "You cannot keep me here forever, Rocco," she cried, her voice echoing in the cool night air. "You talk of safety, but this is a prison of your own making." He advanced on her, his face a mask of controlled fury. "And what is out there for you, Liliana? The gutter? The pity of your husband's family, who left you to rot. I gave you a palace. You gave me a cage," she shot back, jabbing a finger at his chest. "I want my life back." "This is your life now," he roared, grabbing her wrist. The contact was electric, a jolt that stole the breath from both of them. His grip was iron, yet it didn't hurt her. It anchored her. Her fiery gaze met his, and in the depths of his dark eyes, she saw not just anger, but a raw, aching vulnerability. "You are my life now," he whispered, the words a confession torn from the deepest part of him. "You and the children. You are the only good thing in this godforsaken world. C'est la mia salvezza. My salvation." The fight went out of her, replaced by a dizzying wave of emotion. This man, this killer, this king of shadows was laying his blackened soul bare for her. Before she could process it, before he could retreat behind his walls of ice, he lowered his head and his lips crashed down on hers. It was not a gentle kiss. It was desperate, possessive, a drowning man's gasp for air. It was the taste of whiskey, danger, and a profound, heartbreaking loneliness. She should have fought, she should have pushed him away, but instead, her hands came up to clutch at his shirt, pulling him closer. She kissed him back with all the fear, frustration, and burgeoning feelings she had kept locked away. It was a surrender, a collision of two worlds in the moonlit garden, surrounded by the scent of roses that smelled impossibly like blood and hope. While this fragile love bloomed in the shadows, another, more venomous plant was taking root. Vincenzo, Rocco's treacherous cousin, saw everything. He saw the late-night visits, the softening of his cousin's eyes, the kiss in the garden. He didn't see salvation. He saw a fatal weakness. Seething with ambition and jealousy, he made a call. He met with what was left of the Falcone family's leadership, bitter and broken men eager for revenge. "Rocco has gone mad," Vincenzo hissed, his words dripping with poison. "He holds Liliana Falcone and her children captive. A trophy. He flaunts her, disrespecting the memory of your fallen soldier, disrespecting all of you. He is weak, distracted by this woman. Now is the time to strike. I can get you inside the villa. We take back what is yours and I will take what is mine." He fanned the flames of their hatred, painting himself as their ally, their key to vengeance. The plot was simple. A full frontal assault on the villa. In the ensuing chaos, Vincenzo's own men, loyal only to him, would eliminate Rocco. Liliana and her children would be tragic casualties, a necessary sacrifice. Vincenzo would rise from the ashes as the new, stronger Dawn, the man who had cleansed the family of his cousin's weakness. The attack came without warning, a savage rip in the fabric of the night. Liliana was putting the children to bed when the first sounds echoed from downstairs, not the gentle chime of a bell, but the splintering of wood and the unmistakable percussive crack of gunfire. Rocco was with her. He had been telling Matteo a story, a rare moment of domestic peace that was shattered into a million pieces. In an instant, the gentle storyteller vanished and the Shadow King emerged. His body became a weapon, his eyes going flat and cold with lethal purpose. "Get down," he commanded, shoving Liliana and the children toward the back of the room, his body forming a human shield around them, bullets stitched across the wall where they had just been standing. The villa, her gilded cage, had become a war zone. Rocco moved with a terrifying grace, a whirlwind of controlled violence. He produced a pistol from a hidden compartment in the wall, his movements fluid and economical. "Leo is on his way. We need to get to the panic room," he said, his voice dangerously calm amidst the chaos. He pulled Liliana close, his arm a band of steel around her waist, ushering her and the children through a connecting door. The sounds of a fierce firefight raged below. She could hear men shouting, the symphony of destruction playing out in her home. But all she could focus on was the solid wall of Rocco's back, the fierce determination in his eyes as he protected them. He was not just her captor. He was her protector, her champion. He kicked open a panel hidden behind a tapestry, revealing a reinforced steel door. He pushed them inside into the small dark space, before turning to stand guard at the entrance. "No one will touch you," he vowed, his silhouette framed by the flashing chaos outside. "I will burn this world to the ground before I let them harm you." In the aftermath, as Leo's men secured the blood-spattered villa, the truth of the betrayal was discovered. One of Vincenzo's men, wounded and cornered, confessed everything. He spoke of the meetings with the Falcones, of Vincenzo's ambition, of the plan to kill Rocco and blame the rival family. Leo found the final piece of evidence on the corpse of a Falcone captain. A burner phone, its last outgoing call made to Vincenzo just minutes before the assault began. The treachery was absolute, a serpent's bite from within his own family. Rocco stood in the grand hall of the Santoro estate, the heart of his empire. The marble floors were cold, the portraits of his ancestors staring down with stony judgment. His most loyal capos and soldiers lined the walls, their faces grim, the air thick with the metallic scent of blood and betrayal. Vincenzo was forced to his knees in the center of the room. There was no fear in his eyes, only a venomous, cornered rage. "You're weak, Rocco," he spat, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "You let a woman, a Falcone whore, turn you soft. You dishonor this family." Rocco circled him slowly, his footsteps the only sound. He stopped in front of his cousin. He did not look angry. He looked weary. "You speak of honor, Cugino? You who conspired with our enemies. You who would have seen children murdered to steal a throne you are not fit to sit on." He paused, his gaze sweeping over his men before landing back on Vincenzo. "You call her my weakness. You are wrong." His voice dropped, becoming intensely personal. A raw confession before his entire syndicate. "That woman, Liliana, she is not my weakness. She is the only part of my soul that is not yet corrupted. She is my strength. She is my future." He looked at Vincenzo, and for the first time a flicker of emotion crossed his face, a deep, profound sorrow. "She is my queen. And you tried to harm her." Vincenzo laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "So the Shadow King has a heart after all. They will tear you apart for it." Rocco shook his head. "No. They will respect me for it." He turned to Leo, his voice ringing with absolute authority. "The old code is clear on the matter of traitors. He brought war to our doorstep. He threatened our future." He turned and walked away, not needing to see the inevitable. He didn't look back as Leo carried out the grim sentence. Justice in their world was swift and brutal. But as Rocco left the hall, he was not thinking of the power he had just consolidated. He was thinking of the family he had almost lost, and the new kind of kingdom he now had to build. The war Vincenzo tried to ignite was snuffed out before it could truly begin. With the Falcones decimated and their secret ally within the Santoro family eliminated, the balance of power was firmly in Rocco's hands. But victory felt different this time. The taste of blood was bitter, not sweet. He had stared into the abyss and seen the faces of Liliana and her children reflected there. He knew he had to change, not just for them but for himself. He began the slow, arduous process of shifting his empire. He invested in legitimate businesses, using his fearsome reputation to build rather than break. He wanted a legacy his children would not be ashamed of. A world where the sound of laughter was more common than gunfire. One evening, he came to Liliana as she sat in the garden, the roses now in full defiant bloom. He carried no weapon, wore no mask of command. He was just a man, scarred and flawed, standing before the woman who had remade him. "Liliana," he began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "The threat is gone. Vincenzo is gone. You are safe now. Truly safe." He held out a set of keys and a thick envelope. "These are for a house in the north, far from here. The envelope contains more money than you will ever need. You can go. You can be free. You and the children can have the life you wanted. Away from all of this." He was offering her an escape from the gilded cage, an exit from his dark world. It was the ultimate test. He was giving her a choice. "Or," he continued, his voice cracking with emotion as he took a step closer, "you can stay. Not as my captive. Not as my prize. But as my wife. My partner. My Regina." He knelt before her, the mighty Rocco Santoro on his knees in the dirt. He took her hand, his touch gentle. "I love you, Liliana. You have shown me what it means to have a heart. Please let me build a life with you. Let me be a father to your children." Tears streamed down her face as she looked at him, at this impossible, terrifying, beautiful man. She saw the truth in his eyes, the sincere plea of a soul seeking redemption. She reached out and gently traced the faint scar on his cheek, a map of the life he had lived. She thought of the man who had knelt to comfort her daughter, who had shielded them with his own body, who was now laying his entire kingdom at her feet. She leaned in and whispered her answer, a single word that sealed their fate. Yes, 6 months later, the villa on the hill was no longer a cage. It was a home. The laughter of Matteo and Sofia was the new soundtrack, chasing away the ghosts of the past. Liliana stood on the balcony, looking out at the city lights, no longer a prisoner but a queen surveying her domain. Rocco came up behind her, wrapping his strong arms around her waist. He was still the Don, a man respected and feared throughout the city, but he ruled with a new kind of wisdom, one tempered by the compassionate counsel of his wife. He nuzzled her neck, his touch sending a familiar shiver of delight through her. "Happy, mia Regina?" he murmured. She leaned back against his solid chest. "More than I ever thought possible." He turned her around to face him, his eyes filled with an adoration that still took her breath away. He produced a small velvet box. Inside was a diamond necklace, a river of light that sparkled even in the twilight. He fastened it around her neck. It didn't rest on bruised skin or a mark of ownership, but on the proud, strong neck of a woman who was his equal. "C'est la mia vita, la mia regina," he whispered, his vow echoing the one he had made months before. "You are my life, my queen." He had found his salvation not in power or in wealth, but in the defiant heart of a widow he'd found on a cold, rain-swept street. Can a heart forged in darkness truly find salvation in the light? Can a love born from violence ever truly be pure? Some say a king like Rocco Santoro can never change his stripes. But when a shadow king kneels for his queen, a new kind of empire is born. One built not on fear, but on a fierce, unyielding love. What do you think? Let me know your most epic love story in the comments, and don't forget to share this tale of a love that conquered all.